Before we dive in, I want to be upfront about something important. This episode contains a discussion about peptides, some of which may be illegal or unapproved for human use in certain countries, states, or jurisdictions, including by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. Some peptides are legally available for research purposes only and are not approved for personal or therapeutic use. The views and experiences shared by my guests are their own and do not represent my views or constitute an endorsement or recommendation of any substance. Nothing in this episode is medical, legal, or professional advice. It's merely for education and conversation. Always consult a licensed healthcare provider or legal professional before using any substance, and please take the time to independently verify the legal status of any peptide discussed, as regulations vary by location and change frequently. Thank you, and let's begin. Welcome back to Your Wise Self with Sara. I'm so glad that you are here. Today's episode is one that I have genuinely been looking forward to, diving into a topic that's close to my heart, what it actually means to thrive for the long haul, and especially in midlife. Not just manage symptoms, but truly live younger, stronger, and longer by choice, not by chance. My guests today are Dr. Mark Sherwood and Dr. Michelle Sherwood, known as the Real Longevity Doctors. Together, they run the Functional Medical Institute. They have helped over 25,000 patients reverse chronic disease and reclaim their health. They've co-authored 7 books and produced 8 health films. Their approach is whole person, root cause, and deeply grounded in the belief that your body was designed for vitality, not decline. Dr. Mark is also a former SWAT team leader. Yes, you heard that right. Turned doctor certified in peptides and genetics. His story is compelling, and I think you're going to love hearing from him. So going somewhere brand new today on the show with peptides. If you've been hearing that word and wondering what it actually means, this conversation is for you. Welcome to Your Wise Self. I'm so honored to have you both here.
Well, thanks for having us. We're honored to be with you today.
Yes, we are grateful.
I am looking forward to our conversation today and just diving right into Dr. Mark. You were on the SWAT team as a team leader, and you have moved from that to being a naturopathic doctor. What did that story entail?
I was working as a police officer at the time, in my time on the SWAT team. Part of that was eventually landed at the police academy, where I was tasked with developing a wellness program for police officers, really just not in our city, but nationwide. Wow. And there was one statistic that still haunts me to this day. And it was the statistic that was a 50-year-old statistic at that time. So we're talking something that was back in the 1950s of a study. And it said that police officers that work 20 years, male police officers, live to the average of 66 years of age. And that shocked me. And I thought, well, I'm going to do some research and data pulling for my own state and my own county. And Sara, I found out it was the same thing except 1 year less. And I knew it was wrong. Something was broken. Something was amiss. So I kind of went on a mission in regard to trying to figure out why, I suppose, And in the development of the wellness program, I wanted to change that because I see these men and women working really, really hard and serving our city and counties and states and nation. And yet they weren't enjoying that retirement. They'd retire and die. And I saw that. I'd witnessed that. Some of my friends, I started studying. And it's almost like there's a movie, Forrest Gump, I know you've heard of, who kept running. Yes. I just kept on studying. I was fascinated with what creates, stress in life and shortens life and affects us physiologically and biologically. And I just never stopped. And so I went really from protection and service to protection and service, just a different sort of scope, I suppose, and different vantage points. A lot of people think it's 2 different careers, but in my mind, it really wasn't. I'm still trying to protect people probably from themselves and serve them with everything I've got.
Yeah, amazing. It's such a great story, and it's so true how the two really do interweave together. And it's fun how you got to bring your passion to the police force and to help from that angle. And how many years ago was that?
I served 24 years in total, 10 years on the SWAT team, and went off the books officially in 2012. And I believe that initiation of the wellness program was probably back in about 2002, something like that.
That's coming up on 24 years.
Be quiet now.
That's amazing, though. I would imagine that you're probably one of the first people really spearheading this whole lifestyle philosophy. And so I just can't wait to dig into more of this and really hear more from you on what it is that you have learned and brought to this field. Dr. Michelle, tell me a little bit about your story, and then I'd love to hear how you two partner in medicine. Let's hear this fun story.
Well, there's actually a full motion picture on my life story. It is called The Prayer List. So I won't belabor all of the different things that I've gone through in my life to get where I'm at. But part of it does include our love story and how we met and how the Functional Medical Institute came to be born and is still alive. I first thought I was going to be an Olympic athlete. I suffered a major injury that wasn't going to be possible. I went on to then get into physique competitions and won the USAs. And I had a friend of mine say, "You're just far too smart to just be a massage therapist for the rest of your life. So if you go to school and you decide what you want to do, I will pay for your first semester." And I said, "I'm going to be an osteopath." And the rest is history.
Oh my gosh. So a whole movie, The Prayer List. We need to put that in the show notes. People need to check that out. And I commend you for the work that you did, especially in the physique competition world, because I actually have done the training. I wanted to look like them. I just never wanted to actually do the competition. So I have done the diet, the nutrition, the workouts, and yeah, I got into best shape of my life in my early 30s because of it. So I know how hard it is and how hard you have to work.
Definitely a discipline.
Yes, absolutely. Well, so now bring that story together of this partners in life, partners in medicine. How did that all happen?
Well, one day he walked into my clinic while I was teaching a class, and it really was love at first sight. It didn't take long before the two of us were actually working in the practice together. Probably month?
Yeah, a month or two after we first met. And I remember the first time I touched her hand. You know, chivalry's not dead, men, in case you kill it, right?
Right.
So I wasn't going to kill it, and I still opened the door for her, but I shook her hand. And I said, "Thank you for your time today." And I couldn't let go. It was really wild. And, it's one of those awkward moments. You're kind of stuck and people are watching and it's really awkward. So
Yeah.
I decided that I need to have a little bit of courage. I've kind of always been shy oriented, and asked her to dinner and she said yes. And we really haven't been apart at all really since.
Oh, that's amazing. A spark was there and that electricity you just couldn't let go of. So I love it. So then you created your practice together. So let's talk a little bit more about what that has looked like. You have a clinic. Can you tell the audience a little bit more about that clinic and who you serve?
We have a wellness-based medical clinic, which is a clinic that walks people down a pathway of wellness. A lot of times people come to us and they are completely hopeless, so to speak. They've tried every doctor, they've tried every drug, they've tried every procedure, and nothing works. They end up in our office because somebody else had great success. And before they know it, once they go down that pathway, they're off their medications, they're in the gym, they're eating right, they put the foundational principles of health in place, and by golly, it works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's great that they have a place to go to. And you're based out of where?
Out of Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Out of Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yeah, but we have people we see around the country and world. It's
I'm sure
a lot of stuff in the last several years has progressed where virtual not only possible, they're pretty common now.
Yeah, we always say, right, the one positive thing that came out of COVID was that we knew that we could connect still in this platform, in this way, and it is still very, very much viable. So, yeah, so your tagline is live younger, stronger, and longer, but it tends to be that maybe people are settling for living longer, but they're not really bringing in that stronger or that younger components. Yes, people settle. So what's the real difference here? Why does that matter?
People really need to set their expectations different. We like to say in the history, you can uncover the mystery. And you go back and look at history, and history tells us a couple of things. We know the oldest person that's ever lived, at least on modern day record, is Jean Calment. She lived in England, and she died at 122. We know that today, the oldest person alive lives in Japan, is 118. We know that Japan holds the largest number of centenarians, greater than 100, and the greatest percentage of supercentenarians, greater than 100. And notice that neither of those particular persons lived in North America. I think there's something to be learned by that history there. And we've set our goals from two perspectives. Sara, one is going to be expectation, because we need to have a greater expectation and not settle for common expectation. And then the second part of it is we need to really transition the idea of living longer or longevity to what we like to call increasing health span, decreasing sick span, and perhaps increasing independence. I was sharing with someone earlier today, the greatest thing that we try to do for people is to give them independence for all their lives. And I don't know a reason other than maybe an accident or calamity on why you would have to lose that independence. But we have sort of expected to lose the independence, I suppose. So a big answer to a short question, but we try to kind of shift our community's perspective in that.
Yeah.
We like to tell people you want to live as long as you can, live with vitality in all the days of your life, the way you want, how you want, when you want, do what you want, as long as you want, without adult toys. And they'll give you this grin, and it's like, what do you mean? It's like walkers, wheelchairs, crutches, canes, and pills.
Yeah.
And then they're like, I want water skis, jet skis, snow skis.
Yeah.
That's way more fun. Yes, absolutely. And you probably don't even really realize this, but I actually have been calling myself a lifestyle and longevity health coach. And part of it is because of what I'm interweaving from my education and experience alike, which is the fact that I started off in yoga and yoga therapy. I got a master's in yoga therapy. And so my philosophy, even just from the start with yoga, was do what you love doing for as long as you love doing it, thanks to yoga, thanks to being able to stretch your body, move fascia, move emotion, move the things that need to be moved so that you can keep running or you can keep biking or water skiing or, snow skiing, whatever it is that you're passionate about. So then I went back to school and got the degree in health coaching. And so then married this with the lifestyle medicine and eating right and bringing it all together and helping us be holistically healthy for as long as possible. So I am right there with you, and I'm looking forward to hearing even more in depth and learning from you today. As we progress through this conversation too, a lot of my audience is going to be women in midlife. They're navigating, perimenopause, fatigue, brain fog, all this feeling like their body has betrayed them. So, Dr. Michelle, can you speak to how you start with a woman when she walks through your door that is experiencing all this?
Absolutely. So the first thing we do, of course, is get a nice, deep, solid history. And oftentimes they tell me how to navigate them personally because everybody is unique. And everybody requires different navigational tools. There are some people that want to do bioidentical hormones. There are some people that never want to do bioidentical hormones. And then there's some that want to dabble kind of in between. But as we stated earlier, we put those foundational pillars of health in place so that whatever it is that we choose to put on board, the body can hear it and the body can respond to it. And then they can have that body back. Because we're putting back what is missing and we're making sure that the platform inside the system is clean enough and healthy enough to actually receive what we're doing and what we're trying to accomplish with it. So menopause, perimenopause, we have so much success with women that are struggling. We don't have to struggle. We don't have to feel like our bones ache. We've got brain fog. We have no drive. We have no ambition. And that is just, old age. If we don't have to accept that, we can choose to accept that, but just find yourself a practitioner or somebody that really understands, and you can live a life of longevity.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate what you're saying so much. And with health coaching, I am helping them create that foundation. And so it is going through those foundational levels of, okay, let's get your nutrition on track. Let's get your movement on track. Let's find joy in what you're doing, find joy in your life, bring it back, meditation, all those types of things that are going to help with the mindfulness, the mental health aspect of this. And when I look at you two, I look to you two as, okay, now this is like high level. So this is like once that person has maybe figured out some of these things, but you're looking at this like next step. Okay, now I feel like I'm ready for the next thing. So people have this mind, body, spirit connection too, that I'm referencing here. And that's a factor also in your longevity work. So as people work through these foundations, they're now in this maybe mind, body, spirit, also part of their life, especially those of us in middle age. Sometimes it takes us getting to middle age, getting to that mind, body, spirit connection. Talk a little bit about how that approach works for you guys beyond that physical health.
Well, I think with the physical health part, we need to understand there is a connection that is inseparable, physical, emotional, spiritual. And we are multifaceted person. We live in a body, we have emotions, and we have a spirit. And whatever people define that as, I think we all know what it is, and so those connections can't be separated. And so when you're not well in one, you'll have a unwellness in the other, and there will be an imbalance there. So we had to bring those back together, which is exactly, what you're talking about. And then once you get that foundational piece solidified, I suppose, in your mind and heart, get those connected, then you have to be able to test the right things, have the right education around it, even with the idea of hormones. I mean, there's all kinds of stories out there and all kinds of innuendos and rumors and truths and what's fact or fiction. We've taken great effort to educate people, answer questions, and teach them what we know, knowing full well that when we wake up every day, we know that we don't know everything. And I think that keeps us hungry and keeps us on our game.
Yeah.
And so we don't have it all figured out, and we've been doing it a long time. And I suppose foundationally speaking, it becomes easier. But there's always room to grow. There's always room to improve. There's always room to get better. Whatever we do, especially this idea of this thing called life.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure you get people that come in all the time that their health issue is a mystery to them and a mystery to you. And you two kind of have to sort through and sift through. To your point, you're still constantly learning based on these different issues that people are bringing to you and unraveling or layering all of what's going on, which can be years of layers of issues that try to figure that all out.
Yeah, no question. I mean, people carry their many times childhood wounds into adulthood, wounds as well. And others, I mean, we all are different. So you're right. We learn something from everyone. And then, as we learn, we can pass on, and people pass on to other people. That's probably the blessing of what we've been able to do, I suppose, is build a community of people that really become a community of teachers and examples. And that's what we kind of want to see.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. 25,000 people strong, right?
That's a lot.
I love it. I love it. So this is the first time on Your Wise Self with Sara that I've talked about peptides. So we talked about this, I know before, Mark, when we met, that we were going to hone in on this because I'm super fascinated by it. I actually have literally had people this week asking me about it. I said, hold on, I'm interviewing Dr. Mark and Dr. Michelle on Friday. I'm going to have an episode of my podcast coming out soon. So let's start this from the ground up. Tell the audience a little bit about what peptides are, why someone in midlife might want to use them.
First of all, we have written a book. It's called Peptides Unlocked, and it is available out there. It's on Amazon. It's written for the layperson, so it's not super overheady to make somebody just go, this is just too much. It tells you the categories of peptides, what the categories of peptides are for. There are peptides for hair. There are peptides for skin. There are peptides for muscle. There are peptides for weight loss and fat. I call it fat incineration. There are peptides to, health, bone health, brain health, and immune cell health. There's a peptide for just about every single solitary system in your body, either if it's a single peptide or stacking the peptides together. And people go, well, what is a peptide? Peptides are simply chains of amino acids. And amino acids are the building blocks of life. And a peptide is a chain of amino acids that is strung together with bonds that are less than 50 amino acids. That classifies it as a peptide. When it gets over that, it's a polypeptide from 50 to 100, and then over 100, it becomes a protein. So peptides are really simply just chains of amino acids.
I want to know kind of what they do, as far as they do help in all those areas, but they're actually signaling molecules. And people need to know that we make these things in our body. So we have now the opportunity, the more we know, to be able to manufacture them outside the body and reintroduce them to the body. So we know that the body's systems communicate with each other. They send signals back and forth and back and forth. But as time goes on and life goes on, we begin to biologically break down, as opposed to biologically improving, repairing, regenerating, rebuilding. And so in that communication process, therein lies the problem. We don't send and receive signals as well. The peptides brought back in are signaling molecules, and that's exactly what they do. I'll just give you one simple example of one. It is well known. It's been around for a long, long time. BPC 157. Okay. Now, it sounds complicated. It's a 15-chain amino acid, and people don't need to know that, but you need to know what it does. It actually is a signaling molecule that you bring in that tells your body to go repair that which is broken. Okay. With ligaments, tissues, muscles, tendon, skin. And when you think about it, the ability to bring that in is kind of cool. Mm-hmm. And so that's what they are. And you can bring them in to repair things, improve things, or as we look at them, you can bring them in to avoid things. Okay. So, we got to think about it both sides, not only, using what we know to be reactive and, restorative, but also how about preventive or prehabilitative, and that's a different way to look at it. But I think that gives people kind of a good round of what they can do. They're exceptional. They've been well studied, and they're coming out with more and more all the time that even probably as we talk right now, there's probably coming out more. And, time will tell whether, all of them are as great as they say they are, but we haven't seen anything really negative so far.
Sure. Okay. So then for that woman in midlife, how does this differentiate between hormone replacement or other supplements that we're getting bombarded with right now?
Well, hormones are hormones, and the peptides are definitely not going to be estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, DHEA, pregnenolone. They're going to be completely different than sex steroids, so to speak. Okay. All of what I just mentioned are sex steroids that are made by the body. These peptides the majority of them are made by the system, and they decline as we get older, and they are also very system specific. We can put certain peptides on board to improve the longevity of the system, to maybe preserve the length of time that the ovaries function, but there's not going to be a peptide that you can take that makes estrogen or gives the body estrogen or makes testosterone or gives the body testosterone. We're just not there yet, but we do have peptides or bioregulators that can simply improve the length of time that an organ or an endocrine organ does its job.
Okay.
It gets kind of complicated, but I think this might help people too. Is like when a hormone is made, it's a signaling molecule as well, right? It's a chemical messenger, but it hits on the cell at a receptor site. So think about it like if we send somebody an email, some people answer that email pretty immediately. You're like, wow, that would be a sensitive receptor, right? As opposed to someone you send several emails to and you're wondering if they're still alive.
Right.
Right. And it would be an insensitive receptor. So you can send more email. And the body will do that until the receptor is covered and that signal goes inside of the cell to do something. peptides don't really hit the cell receptors. They kind of hit on these G protein receptors, which are outside of the cell, causing multiple cellular actions to go at the same time. So there's really, that's a significant difference. And as Dr. Michelle mentioned, we have these little bioregulators. They're oral peptides. Mm-hmm. They're 3 amino acids in length. So they're really tiny guys. Those can go through the cell wall, through the nucleus, and they bind directly to DNA. So when she talked about maybe making the ovaries last longer or be more younger, we have ovary bioregulators that someone could take perhaps in 35 years young and still interested in having babies, things like that. Those are helpful, and maybe somebody wants to, bump up their thyroid before trying to have to start on medication. So that's some examples of what they can do and what they can be.
And we've had people that have had been on thyroid after having a child. We all say, you're going to lose a tooth after you have that first baby. For every child, you lose a tooth. Well, not if we take care of the system right. And we have gotten many a person off thyroid medication using bioregulators specific to the thyroid.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Okay, so you said something there that I have to touch on. You lose a tooth for every kid you have? What's the connection there?
Back in the day, of course, undernourishment, lack of education about the fact that the body needs nutrients, that we need vitamin D, we need magnesium, we need calcium, we need collagen, we need vitamin C as a bone matrix. So the child is going to get the nutrients and the mother will starve. That's just kind of how that life circle goes when we're carrying a baby, a bun in the oven, so to speak.
This is super fascinating to me because we have women in middle age, they're having the thyroid issues, they're having the hormone issues, they're having all these things. You also referenced women having babies older and older. I have one of my best friends had her 2 babies in her late 30s, early 40s. And it's just getting more and more common. So that seems like that would be a great reason for someone to explore peptides. What other reasons are there that people would explore them? And it doesn't necessarily have to be women in midlife, maybe talk outside of that even.
We know one of the things that starts happening in midlife is we start to decline in our ability to sleep through the night, or we have chronic insomnia. And that chronic insomnia then leads to daytime fatigue, and it's just a vicious circle. So there are multiple different peptides that we can use that signal the brain to help go nighty-night and have a good night's sleep. And one of the peptides, sermorelin specifically, it aids the brain in producing what's called brain-derived neurotropic factor. And we call that brain fertilizer. It's also stimulated by exercise and yoga and just physical activity. But a lot of people just, they start having aching bones or just not feeling themselves. And they just, instead of becoming more active, they become less active. Exercise helps the production of brain-derived neurotropic factor, and so does sermorelin, a peptide. And that particular component of the brain helps the brain go down to sleep.
Okay.
And there are other sleep peptides that do a great job if sermorelin doesn't work for a specific person. But sermorelin has other actions, not just sleep. It also helps retain lean muscle mass and even potentiates putting on a little bit of lean muscle. And we know once we hit that middle age, it's harder and harder to keep it, not only keep it, but increase in the amount of mass that we have on our frame.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh, tell me about it. I'll be 49 this year, and I'm like, what happened? I used to have muscles. It's just like everything feels like it's changing. From that high level, you were starting to talk about this earlier too, Dr. Mark, with the mitochondrial health and cellular energy, and really like how peptides help with that and are adding longevity at that biological factor. Was there anything else that you wanted to expand on in relation to that as we're looking through this, sleep and thyroid and all these different aspects?
I think people need to know that dysfunction in the systems always has a reason. Why do we have dysfunctions, and why do we have things that don't communicate properly? And in our assessment and observations, we believe that's mitochondrial dysfunction. And the mitochondria are these little organelles that create energy, or ATP, or cellular gasoline, for the cells to operate. And there's trillions of mitochondria within all of our trillions of cells. And I don't really know what that number would be, but it's a big one. Multiple zeros that probably couldn't see at the end of that. But the point being, the mitochondria, when it starts creating energy, it does it on demand. And so when you need more, it'll make more. They'll bond together, they'll fuse together to, kind of pool up resources, so to speak. But we need to know there's something called free radicals that are natural products of this energy creation. And we need them, like when you go exercise, you're naturally creating free radicals, which are good. But there comes a time where potentially we get too many of those built up inside the mitochondria. And when we do, not to get too technical, we get free radicals built up that can destroy the action of the mitochondria. And so all of our work with people is bent on clearing those free radicals and keeping those things from being built up on the mitochondrial level, because when they get built up too much, they can create breakages of DNA or DNA damage. And so we use a lot of things for that. There's a peptide out there called SS31 that we use to protect the mitochondrial membrane. There's a peptide that we use to create more energy on demand. It's called MOTS, MOTSC. And then we use molecular hydrogen, which is something you can breathe or drink. And I'm having some right now, actually, that actually go down into the mitochondria, bind to only these negative free radicals, and it turns them into water. So you're actually able to use those techniques, pretty much anybody can, in our view, to slow down that mitochondrial degradation process, which slows down our system's signaling processes, which creates the aging processes.
Sure. Okay. When you talk about mitochondrial health, I think one of the other things we hear a lot about right now is infrared saunas, red light therapy. That's another way that people can help. And I would imagine that, like anything else, it's kind of a 1-2 punch. Like they could be doing the red light therapy and it's only going to help with the facilitation of using the peptides for their mitochondrial health. Is that true, or how does that work?
It's going to definitely depend upon the type of red light that you have. I mean, near infrared is going to be more superficial. Medium is going to be a little bit deeper into connective tissues. And then far is going to be all the way down to the level of the mitochondria to help this mitochondrial biogenesis. Now, of course, you're going to get an even better effect if you're using a peptide that is for mitochondrial health or the regeneration of the mitochondria. It's like giving the mitochondria a supercharge, so to speak. So one is not bad, and it's not always that one is better than the other, but if you can put them both together, that's where the real power comes in. For example, we've got an infrared sauna in the home, which is near, medium, and far. And then we've got an exercise room upstairs where we've got exercise bikes and equipment that has an infrared light system around each corner. So we're getting exposed to that over 10, 15, 20, 30, 45 minutes, whatever that session may be, as often as we want.
Okay. Yeah.
So
it's amazing.
It's great.
That is fantastic. And I've been doing a little bit of research of just even trying to get like a infrared, like one of those red light pads or something, like on my chair, like these different ways that we can kind of just sneak in, improving our health.
Infrared is the length that it goes into the tissues. So the far infrared is the depth. So the near is the depth. It's less penetrated into the skin, into the surface of the skin.
Okay, so that's what people want to look for when they're researching.
Near, medium, or far. Which wavelengths are you purchasing? Because just a near infrared machine or light panel is just going to be, it's going to be great for your hair and your skin, but it's not going to get down to the level of the mitochondria like far infrared wavelength will.
Okay, that makes sense. So really it's just based on what their goals are with it.
For sure.
Yeah, like if someone wants to get a red light panel and, and use that for the face or arms or something like that. I mean, it's going to hit mitochondria, but it's going to hit it shallower. And so you're going to get benefit from it, no question about it, which is awesome. But the far infrared goes deeper into the body. That's just the main difference. But they're all beneficial.
Okay. Got it. That's super helpful. Thank you. So is there an order of operations in this process? You talked a little bit about like somebody coming into your clinic, you do labs, you do a lifestyle foundation before they start exploring peptides with you, or what is that order that you usually see people?
Well, our process is kind of like test, don't guess. We really want to see what's going on underneath the skin, in the blood vessels, at the genetic level. Who is this person and what are we treating? Because everybody is unique. Now, everybody doesn't have the finances to go, the full Monty, but boy, if we can, and we can have genetics and we can have what I call the Mercedes-Benz of labs, we can create a lifestyle plan for them for life, and we can continue to go back and refine that because we have information that's only theirs. And then we've got other tests like a BioAge that can tell you how old are you biologically versus how old are you chronologically. So it depends upon what the person wants to accomplish, how deep they want to go. And if they just want to explore peptides, I'm fine with that. If they have all their lifestyle parameters in check and they already want to go to hormones, that's great. But we really start with what their goals are, where they want to go, and what's their state of readiness. Because if they're not ready and they don't want to do it, they're not going to be the one that comes back and stays in the game.
And one common mistake I think people make, especially in today's world, because we got so much talk about peptides, this, that, and the other, and this supplement, that supplement. The supplement industry is $150 billion. We've said this before, and I believe this is true, that you can't work out, supplement, pill away, hormone away, peptide away, pray away a bad diet. You can't do that. And I think sometimes we try because it almost looks like the magic elixir or the magic bullet pill, but it's not wisdom, Sara, to have that mentality, because you lose the power of consistency and power of work, man. Mm-hmm. You put that in, you build that foundation up, and then you're magnifying the strength of that foundation, right? As compared and opposed to just taking something that you think will fix your foundation. But it's like putting new paint on a house that has a cracked foundation. Yeah. And the more times you do that, just put paint on a house or keep patching a roof, eventually that house is going to fall because the foundation is not there. So we're really on that and really push that with a lot of grit, a lot of consistency. And again, with our own lives, I suppose we're consistent like that, and people wouldn't listen to us if we weren't. And so kind of like we tell them we're doing this, and so we don't ask people to do something we're not doing. I think that's really important.
Right. Do you have a book on nutrition yet?
Yeah, we've got a lot of books out there, but I'll give you one plug for the newest, best one. It's coming out in June of 2026.
Okay. Great.
So it is called Authentic Longevity. Okay. Authentic Longevity. Our website is authenticlongevity.com. We encourage people to get on that list. That book is our legacy book, meaning we talk about nutrition, sleep, stress management, movement, genetics, hormones, peptides, supplements, water, emotional health, spiritual health, and we put all together in that book. And we hope that is like a first edition, second edition at some point, or, volume 2 at some point.
Sure. I love it. That's going to be super helpful. It sounds like that will be like the cliff notes on all of it that we need to have.
I think so. Hopefully.
Well, it might be a little more in depth than cliff notes, but no, it will be the ability to be able to digest all of it all at once. So that's fantastic. So I want to talk just for a minute about, I've been writing down some of these names of these peptides. So we have the BPC 157, we have the SS 31, we have the Sermorland.
Sermorland, yes.
Yeah. Like, why? How are these named?
That is a good question. A lot of peptides were generated or formulated in Russia.
Okay.
I'm sure they kept their names passed on down as they entered into the United States, and they just maintained their name legacy.
Yeah, just interesting.
BPC 157, actually, the B is for body and P is for protection, the C is for compound.
Okay.
So it kind of makes sense. Now, I don't know what the SS stands for before 31, but a lot of these names have there's some of them that are named from the inventor, maybe his
Okay.
initials, or some that are invented from maybe where the school where they're studied. There's one called SLUPP332.
Okay.
The SLU is St. Louis University. I mean, where did that come from? So,
Okay.
there's a lot of non-consistency in those things. So most importantly, we just kind of categorize them on what they do,
Sure.
and
Sure.
that's been best.
Yeah. That's so fascinating. Okay, so when you and I talked first to Dr. Markey, we talked about how GLPs are peptide. So people know GLPs through taking them typically as shots, right? I mean, most people do. I think there's some pill forms out there as well.
Yeah.
But first of all, touching on GLPs as a peptide, how you feel about them, and then are peptides typically taken through a shot form?
Yeah, so the GLPs, believe it or not, every single whether it's a GLP-1, a GLP-2, a GIP, or ghrelin, our bodies make those. And genetically, some people just don't make enough of it. So they've always got that little food noise in the back of their mind. And when they take a GLP-1, let's just talk about semaglutide or Ozempic, for example, for the first time in their life, that food noise in their head goes away. So it is like magic. The thing we have to be careful with it, you see all the advertisements that all the negative things that happen, is sometimes there's not enough behavioral change that goes on with nutrition, and they end up becoming anorexic. They're not trained to, you need this amount of protein, you've got to get good fats, you still have to have good fuel to fuel your body. And they can go days with just a little small piece of meat on their plate. And then we end up in trouble. So if we're educated correct and we use them correctly, we can really transform a nation, because as we well know, we are completely out of shape and overweight, and it's our food supply. We just need to get that under control. So the GLPs potential to start to turn that around, and especially for people who have, that constant noise that even though they've just eaten, they need to head back to the refrigerator.
Okay.
I think it's important for people to know what they do. I think mechanism of action is important, and like your stomach is the size of your fist, as opposed to a basketball. It's not that big. It's small. And when you think about it, that space is not very much. But what's supposed to happen is when that space gets full, and I'm being very simplified with it, obviously, but we get a signal sent back north to our brain to say, the space is full. I've got room for no more. And that signal is glucagon-like peptide 1, GLP-1. But it takes about 20 minutes normally for that stomach to be able to generate that signal in that process to get back to the north. But we eat so fast and so quick today that stomach, which is made of smooth muscle cell, will swell up and it blows up like a big balloon. And of course, by that time, we end up with this sensation. We say, geez, I ate too much. So the GLP-1s can speed it up and actually help us. But here's the kicker, and this is where people get in trouble, is they use those GLP-1s to lose weight. And they use the GLP-1s into the context that we're just cutting down our calories or food makes me fat.
Yeah.
All of which are horrific pieces of guidance. And I'm using the words horrific intentionally. We don't live on calories. We live on micronutrients.
Yeah.
And it's important that in this case, we fill up that space with as nutrient-dense foods as we can find.
Yeah.
And if we do that and use the tools that God gave us and fill up that space with real food, and then use this GLP-1 technology peptide as maybe training wheels, like on a bike, to learn how to ride that bike again, they can really bring about change. And we've had good success with them. And one other area we've had success is if you have I think most people would agree that if you did a occasional longer fast, maybe 24 hours, that's probably good for you. Mm-hmm. Well, if you know what you're doing, you could use the GLP-1 perhaps on an isolated, infrequent basis if you knew your body enough, do the right amount to make that relatively easy. Yeah. So you can see a couple of incredibly beneficial usages of it, but you can also see the pitfalls of it too. You can take so much of that stuff you wouldn't eat, and you get malnourished, and the scale weight might go down, but I'm not happy. You need to maintain all your muscle tissue, all of it, and even grow more, work out and grow more muscle, lose more fat. That's the goal.
Right. Right. Yeah. That's super fascinating. And I love hearing about how that connection works and how that GLP-1 can even be used with, fasting and used as a tool to resource over like this complete answer that I think a lot of people are turning to, that it's just a quick fix kind of concept again, where we just want to take a pill or take a shot and have it fixed.
Yeah. We're seeing it in medicine from, just the internal medicine stages, from the cardiologist to the nephrologist to the gastroenterologist. It's like, wow, fatty liver is going away. Wow, there's less dilated cardiomyopathies. There's less inflammation in the heart. Wow, this nephritis, this inflammation in the kidneys is getting better. And it's done a lot for a lot of systems, just besides getting rid of metabolic syndrome and type 2 diabetes. And in our practice, we use microdosing. So we have a lot of elite athletes that they don't need to lose weight, but they sure like it when their inflammation is down, because they can return to their game quicker, stronger, faster by microdosing the GLPs. They may not need that in that first dose. They might need half of it, or they might take that first dose and divide it into threes and inject 3 days of the week. So there's just so much individuality that can happen with these GLPs when you customize it to the patient or the person.
Okay, so are peptides always injected?
No.
Okay.
Some of our favorite ones, there's topical. We have one we call Kingdom Skin, and it is amazing. It's got a couple of peptides that we blended together at one of our compounding pharmacies, and put it on your skin, and it builds up the collagen underneath and to get rid of the fine lines and wrinkles. And I was telling somebody earlier today that there's not a lady out there that shouldn't be using it, and there's not a male out there that shouldn't be using it. And the males, they can even use it as aftershave. It's that good.
Oh, no
and
kidding.
Then we have one that's sort of a pump like a foamy thing you can put on your hair.
Okay.
Same deal. It stops the hair loss. It can help hair fullness. And why would you wait until you're balding to fix that, So that's
Right.
good. And then the little bioregulators we have, like we talked about them earlier for thyroid and ovary, adrenal, they're oral. So the little bitty old pills that you take, only 2 per day for 10 days monthly. And those are easy to do. And those we use those a lot to see our biological aging processes as measurable being reversed.
This is super helpful to help demystify all of this. Really straightforward. People can reach out to you. I know you have multiple books, multiple places that they can find your resources, and I'll make sure all of that's in the show notes. But what would you say to somebody who is wanting to just they're curious, they want to work with you? Where would they start?
Well, I think they go to Sherwood.tv, and there's a call to action there. We do. I mean, we believe that people shouldn't pay any money until they know who we are and ask questions. We do a webinar that is once a month on the second Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. Central, and we present. It's us, really us. And then we really, really answer questions afterwards in the chat bar. And it's kind of cool because, people show up to that, or you work with us, and then there's positions open for them to get in as soon as 2 weeks, which is kind of cool. Or if people just want to reach out to us to start the process, immediately they can, either way. But those are 2 ways. And we're just trying to really be a blessing to people mostly.
Yeah. Well, you certainly are. I will definitely make sure that this is all in the show notes. Is there any kind of parting thought that you want to leave with the audience today?
Well, I think that health and wellness, I would say this directly to the audience members, it's yours. You just got to go out and go get it. You got to take it. Don't expect it to be handed to you or perhaps even taught to you from the current systems the way they're in place. But there's answers out there. And the place to start is the person looking at yourself back in the mirror. And it's one day at a time, one decision at a time, one moment at a time. And I think So wrap that thought up, let yesterday go.
Yeah.
Live today with all you got because it's the present. And then don't worry about tomorrow because that's still a mystery. So take it today and start your health journey right now.
I would say the same thing. Sometimes people come in completely broken and they just need that little bit of mantra put in their head, be a hope dealer.
Yeah.
If we don't change that internal dialogue, it's hard to get better from there. So whatever it takes, look at that person in the mirror and say, hey, thank you for all the wonderful years you've given me.
Yes, absolutely. What a beautiful ending to such a fun interview. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise, sharing your wisdom with myself, with the audience. And I am looking forward to bringing you back on, I hope later this year, so we can take a closer look at your authentic longevity and that book and a whole website dedicated to it sounds like as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I have a course attached to it as well, a certification course. So that's coming.
Oh, fun. Okay. Very good. I'll keep an eye out for that. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Mark. Dr. Michelle, it was great to have you today.
Thank you for having us. Stephanie.
Thank you, Sarah.
I love that at the heart of everything you do is this radical belief that your body has the capacity to heal, restore, and thrive when you give it the right conditions. This is so aligned with everything we explore on this show and in my practice with my clients as well. If today's episode stirred something inside of you, you've been feeling tired, foggy, like you've been aging faster than you should, I want you to hear this. It doesn't have to be that way. You have more agency over your biology than what you know or what you've been told. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with a friend to help grow this community, one wise person at a time. Please leave a review on Apple, Amazon, Spotify. It just takes 1 minute and it means the world to me. And it helps other people find this show when they need it the most. If you're ready to go deeper with your own health and vitality, I would love for you to go out to my website, Your Wise Self with Sara, and download my free e-guide and start from there. Start with a deep dive on what it is that you want to accomplish through taking better care of your own health for the long haul. Then from there, I also will have a 5-day challenge that will be happening every month or two. Head over to Your Wise Self with Sara to grab that e-guide and to sign up for the next 5-day reset. Follow me on Instagram as well. I'd love to continue the conversation with you there. And as always, coming home to yourself starts with listening to what your body is trying to tell you. Your wise self is always waiting. Until next time, take care.